Hello, everybody, and welcome. Today, we are going to be talking about all of the different types of personality disorders. So, take a seat, grab some popcorn, and get ready to enjoy. Oh, and look at my spooky nails because we are going to talk a lot right now. So much to look forward to. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so some general features for personality disorders are that a personality disorder is an enduring pattern of inner experience or behavior that deviates marks from the expectations of the individual's culture. This pattern is manifested by two or more of the following areas in the cognition, affectivity, interpersonal functioning, or impulse control. The enduring pattern is inflexible and pervasive across various personal and social situations. The enduring pattern leads to clinical distress and impairment in social, occupational, or other important areas of functioning. The pattern is stable and long duration, and onset can be traced back to at least adolescence or early adulthood. And the enduring pattern is not better accounted for or manifested due to another mental health condition. The enduring pattern is not due to a direct psychological effect of substance or general medical condition. Other key points. Anyone reaching the threshold for one personality disorder is likely to meet one for another personality disorder. Genetics account for about 50% of the variance in control in normal personality, generally not diagnosed in children, although there can be some exceptions. And 15% of the US population have a personality disorder. In clinical settings, the prevalence is typically greater than 50%. Paranoid, schizotypal, narcissistic, antisocial, and obsessive compulsive personality disorders have been more frequently diagnosed in men. Borderline, histrionic, and dependent personality disorders have been more frequently diagnosed in women. So now let's get into the different clusters. Okay, so there are three different clusters. Cluster A is odd and eccentric, and these are the ones we're going to focus on first. So we have schizotypal, schizoid, and paranoid personality disorders. Let's go ahead and dive right in. So schizoid, one of the ways that you can remember schizoid is think avoid, right? So schizoid people really don't like to have close relationships. They do have a preference for solitude, aloofness, indifference to social norms. They have no reaction to praise, little desire for romance, flat mood, low motivation, active fantasy life, and lacks of pleasure. These are present in the beginning. These symptoms are present in early adulthood, and they're present in a lot of different contexts, which is typical for personality disorders. And these are indicated by four or more of the following, which are the ones that I really just mentioned. Yeah. The one that I didn't mention was showing the emotional coldness, detachment, or flattened affectivity. And this does not occur exclusively during the course of schizophrenia, a mood disorder with psychotic features, another psychotic disorder, or a pervasive developmental disorder. Okay, now some etiology and pathology. So genetic links heritability with introversion, but not with schizophrenia. They excessively have low ability to experience positive effects. Differential diagnosis, absence of desire for relationships is a key difference from avoidant personality disorder, which we'll talk about shortly. And it closely resembles negative symptoms of schizophrenia like flat affect, decreased speech, or poor motivation. But they do not have schizophrenia. Less than 1% of the population has this. This is one of the most rarely diagnosed clinical disorders. Antipsychotics such as olanzapine, aripiprazole, I can't say those. They're typically not beneficial. And social skills training and supportive psychotherapy is recommended. Next, let's do schizotypal. So schizotypal, it's just in case you guys can't see it. Schizotypal, my professor told me to remember it by remembering like atypical. So this is just a picture of what somebody who has this could possibly look like. They do like to express themselves a lot through their clothing. And sorry. And I like to think of Luna Lovegood when I think of schizotypal. One of the best ways to remember in my head any types of diagnoses are to apply them to either people I already know or apply them to movie characters or show characters that would probably fit the criteria. It's just something to connect the dots in your head. So this one, again, present early adulthood, and this one's indicated by 5 or more of the following. So ideas of reference, excluding delusions of reference, odd beliefs or magical thinking that are inconsistent with norms. So thinking like you can read a crystal ball, or feeling like you have clairvoyance or telepathy or a sixth sense. These unusual perceptual experiences, including bodily illusions, odd thinking or speech. Their speech is very circumstantial, metaphorical, over elaborated, or stereotyped. Suspicious or paranoid ideation, inappropriate or constricted affect, behavior or appearance that is odd, eccentric or peculiar, lack of close friends or confidence other than the first degree relatives, and excessive social anxiety that does not diminish with familiarity and tends to be associated with paranoid fears rather than negative judgments about self, which is another key feature because we're going to talk about somebody who does have that, and does not occur exclusively during schizophrenia, a mood disorder with psychotic features, or any other thing. So personality disorders are very separate from schizophrenia or any other mental health disorders. And we do have cases where you could have a personality disorder before you're diagnosed with like schizophrenia or something. And in that case, we call it premorbid. So before it happens. Etiology, this is a strong genetic link with schizophrenia. Signs of central nervous system dysfunction, impairment of smooth pursuit eye movements, abnormalities in galvanic skin orienting response and invoked potential responses, increased reticular brain ratio on brain imaging, smaller superior temporal guides. Differential diagnosis is closely resembles prodromal or residual phases of schizophrenia where psychotic symptoms are present. Key is no deteriorating function. So they still have control over themselves, whereas somebody with schizophrenia would struggle with control a lot more. This happens in 3% of the general population. It happens more in males than in females, and 10 to 20% of people with this personality disorder will develop schizophrenia. Antipsychotic medications such as olanzapine, aripiprazole, or risperidone are beneficial, and social skills training and supportive psychotherapy is also recommended. Next, we have paranoid personality disorder. So paranoid personality disorder, think a little bit negative people, right? So they have a lot of secrecy, suspicion, sensitivity to criticism, hostility, defensiveness, and argumentative nature, tendency to hold grudges, difficulty working with teamwork, and difficulty with introspection, and difficulty relaxing. These are indicated by 4 or more of the following. They suspect without a sufficient basis that others are exploiting or harming or deceiving them. So take, for example, somebody that works at a grocery store, and they just think all of my coworkers are out to get me. They all like look at me really ugly, and they're always talking behind my back, and this is not true. And they have no reason to believe that this is true, but they think this. They are preoccupied with unjustified doubts about loyalty or trustworthiness of their friends or associates. They're reluctant to confide in others because of those unwarranted fears. They think that if they do confide in others, it will be used maliciously against them. They read hidden demeanings or threatening messages behind benign remarks. So they could say something like a sarcastic remark and they'll take it the wrong way and react angrily, which is the next one. They perceive attacks on their character that are not apparent to others and react angrily or counterattack or fight them on it or argue against it. They have recurrent suspicions without justification regarding the fidelity of their spouses or sexual partners. And this does not occur exclusively during the course of schizophrenia, mood disorder, psychotic features. And this is what I was talking about with the premorbid. Okay, genetics contribute to the traits of suspicion and mistrust. and weak genetic links with schizophrenia, possible link with parental criticism and rejection. Differential diagnosis is paranoid ideation is not absurd, inconceivable, or bizarre. Mistrust is generalized rather than isolated to just one area, and chronic course rather than episodic. So again, this has to happen throughout your adult life. 0.5 to 2.5% of general population, and it happens more in males than in females. Atypical antipsychotic medications, which target neurotransmitters such as dopamine and serotonin, may help the psychotic delusions of persecution, but not the generalized suspicions. And then in therapy, we need to have neutral, non-confrontive stances. Yay, done with cluster A. Now let's move on to cluster B. So cluster B, these people are dramatic, emotional, and erratic. They have big feelings and they will express those big feelings to you. These include histrionic, narcissistic, antisocial, and borderline. So let's begin with antisocial. So antisocial people, this is defined by three or more of the following. Now this one, it can only be diagnosed 18 plus. We usually don't diagnose any type of personality disorders to children, and they usually are always to adulthood. But if this were to happen before the age of 18, it could be diagnosed as conduct disorder, which is a completely different criteria. But if you have conduct disorder, then you'll probably have this as an adult, assuming you don't get treatment and it continues. So this is three or more of the following occurring since the age of 18. A would be failure to confront to social norms with respected law behavior, such as indicated by repeated performing of acts that are ground for arrest. Deceitfulness, as indicated by repeated lying, use of allies, and conning other people for personal profit or pleasure. Impulsivity or failure to plan ahead. Reckless disregard for safety of self or others. Consistent irresponsibility, as indicated by repeated failure to sustain work behavior or honor financial obligations. Lack of remorse, as indicated by being indifferent to having rationalized or hurt somebody, or stolen from somebody else. So very big on risk-taking, dangerous or illegal actions, irresponsible behavior. They get very bored with routine. They're impulsive. They lie and are deceitful, arrogant, not learn from their mistakes, lack of remorse, and hostility or aggression. And all of these are from the DSM-5, by the way, in case I never said that. Etiology, twin and family adoption studies show strong genetic components. Low MAOA, which is activity combined with childhood maltreatment, increases risk for violent behavior. Hyperactive electrodremal responses associated with deficits in anticipatory anxiety and worrying. Smaller prefrontal cortex and amygdala. So amygdala, I think, is responsible for decision-making, and your prefrontal cortex decision-making. 3.3 to 6% of males and 1% of females. Higher risk for substance-related disorders. For differential diagnosis, we use a psychopathy checklist. Women are often misdiagnosed as histrionic or borderline, and male borderline may be misdiagnosed as antisocial. Treatment for this, we use mood stabilizers, can help curb the impulsive aggression, and prolonged incarceration may be the only solution for antisocial behavior if it doesn't decline after the age of 40. I don't know what the rest of it was going to say. Okay, let's do borderline personality disorder. So borderline personality disorder, let me see. Okay. Borderline personality disorder. These are up and down and all around. Sorry. And this is indicated by 5 or more of the following. So frantic efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment. A pattern of unstable interpersonal relationships characterized by altering between extremes of idealization or devaluation. So one moment they'll love you and think you're the best person in the world, and the next they can hate you and think that you're the worst person in the world. Identity disturbance marked by persistently unstable self-image or sense of self. Impulsivity in at least 2 areas that are potentially self-damaging, like spending, sex, substance abuse, reckless driving, or binge eating. Reoccurrent suicidal behavior, gestures, or threats, or self-mutilating behavior. And I actually just found an article on this. Let me see. Oopsie. Let me get to that while I keep reading. Affective instability due to marked reactivity of mood, chronic feelings of emptiness, inappropriate intense anger or difficulty controlling their anger. This is frequently displays of temper, constant anger, physical fights, transient stress-related paranoid ideation, and dissociative symptoms. So this is on the role of self-harm. So emotional regulation deficits, people with BPD often struggle to regulate their emotions due to impact on trauma and brain regions responsible for emotionally processing, such as the amygdala and prefrontal cortex. Guess that answers the other question. Dissociating and grounding, self-punishment and shame, a cry for help and communication, trauma, reenactment, and control. So, one of the ways that we do them is what we help them is by helping them enhance emotional regulation skills, develop healthier coping mechanisms, addressing underlying trauma, and using dialect behavior therapy or trauma-focused cognitive therapy have been effective in helping. So that's some info on that. The etiology or pathology, childhood abuse, neglect, or past trauma, parental conflict, and abandonment, smaller hippocampi or amygdala. Self-mutilation is a cardinal symptom and can project their internal dysphoria onto others, including treatment providers. So I've heard that these are people that are a little hard to deal with because you have to constantly be on for them. And again, like I said, their mood could fluctuate. So just some things to look out for. The power of networking. Comorbid mood disorders are very common. Chronically helps to distinguish from bipolar disorder. This happens in 1 to 2% of the general population, 15% psychiatric inpatients, 8% of psychiatric outpatients. Mood disorders, post-traumatic stress disorder, bulimia, dissociative dissociative disorder, and substance abuse could also be comorbid, meaning that they could also experience these. And like I just said, what our treatments are for them. Histrionic personality disorder. So histrionic personality disorder, this is a pretty picture, so I'm going to leave it up on there, but let me just really quick show. Yes, we have 5 or more of the following. So 5 or more of the following. These people have attention-seeking behavior, shallow or shifting moods. They love to be the center of attention. They have inappropriate seductive behavior. So picture like a married mother going to a classroom and trying to seduce the teacher at a parent-teacher night for no reason, just because they can or they want to. Extremely emotional, easily bored, and easily influenced by others. They have a style of speech that is excessively impressionistic, meaning they love to boast about themselves and lack in detail. Show self-dramatization, is suggestible, easily influenced by others, considers relationships to be more intimate than they are, displays rapidly shift and shallow expressions of emotions, consistently uses physical appearance to draw attention to themselves, is interactive with others by inappropriate sexual seductivity or provocative behavior, and is uncomfortable with it when they are not the center of attention. So that's 5 or more. 1 to 3% of the population in general, most commonly diagnosed in women. Cultural bias may lead to misdiagnosis of antisocial females, and males may present with exaggerated masculinity. They may share some genetic components of impulsivity and sensation seeking with antisocial personality disorders. Families may reinforce attention by seeking behaviors. Affective instability may be associated with hyperresponsive non-adrenal system, maladaptive variants of stereotypical feminine traits. Treatment, we can use individual and group psychotherapy, and antidepressants may help with the intense affectivity and rejection sensitivity. The narcissist. Yay. So narcissist. Contrary to popular belief, they actually have a fragile self-esteem, have a need for attention, delusions of grandeur, a sense of entitlement, exaggeration of achievements, fantasies of success, envy, sensitivity to criticism, mistreatment of others, and lack of remorse. This is characterized by 5 or more of the following, and the pervasive pattern of grandiosity, which is in fantasy or behavior, the need for admiration, and the lack of empathy. And these all happen beginning in early childhood. So, like we said, self-importance, and then the fantasies for unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love. They believe that he or she is special and unique and can only be understood by other people who have high status. They require excessive admiration. They have a sense of self-entitlement, unrealistic expectations of how they should be treated. Interpersonally exploitive, so they'll take advantage of other people to get their own means. They lack empathy and are often envious of how others, or believe that others are envious of them. They're arrogant, haughty behaviors or attitudes. Cultural factors such as Western society's emphasis on materialism instead of family and regional values could be at the center of their pathology or etiology. Parental factors ranging from unempathetic to neglectful to over-idealizing stances. Self-esteem is dependent on success, accomplishments, or status, and they may present quietly with more internal narcissism. Differential diagnosis may appear to be highly functioning on the surface, and this overlaps with antisocial personalities. Among the least frequently diagnosed personality disorders, they're prone to mood disorders like anorexia or substance abuse, and they often enter treatment due to an occupational or relational problems. Psychotherapy, like I would see it happening a lot with couples, that one of them just doesn't put in the same amount of effort, but they expect to receive all of the effort. Psychodynamic and other types of psychotherapy would be helpful. And then lastly, we are at cluster C, are anxious. So these are avoidant, dependent, and obsessive compulsive. So avoidant personality disorder, a fixed pattern or behavior that triggers intense fear of rejections. So this is like a common antisocial, avoidant, and what was the other one? Schizoid. All of these sound alike because, well, like avoidant, antisocial, and schizoid, I know they don't sound alike, but they all have to do with like not wanting to be around people, you could say. So schizoid, they avoid people simply because they don't like to be around people and they don't want to be around people. Antisocial avoid just because they believe they're like above the law and can do whatever they want. And they just lack remorse and don't have a need for personal relationships. Avoidants avoid people because they're anxious about how they might be looked at or treated, or just like they're fearful of what criticism they can receive. So this makes it challenging to maintain close relationships. They have low self-confidence, evading activities, seeing themselves as substandard, self-isolating behaviors, feeling unwanted or undesirable, and avoid academic or social or occupational functions just because they have fear of how they would be negatively evaluated. So this is a pattern of social inhibition, feelings of inadequacy, hypersensitivity to negative evaluation, beginning from early childhood and present by 4 or more of the following. So they avoid occupational activities that involve significant interpersonal contact because of fears of criticism, disapproval, or rejection. Unwilling to get involved with people unless they're certain they're going to be liked. Show restraint with intimate relationships because they have a fear of being shamed or ridiculed. Preoccupied with being criticized or rejected in social situations, is inhibited by new interpersonal situations because of feelings of inadequacy, views of self of social inept, personally unappealing or inferior to others, and is usually reluctant to take personal risk or engage in new activities because they might prove embarrassing. Personal brand tagline. So shyness, introversion, and social anxiousness have all been substantial heritability. Parental overprotection and cautiousness may also contribute to it. May have excessive automatic arousal, fearfulness, and inhibition due to elevated peripheral sympathetic activity, enhanced adrenal cortical responses, and exaggerated amygdala activation. 1 to 2% of the general population have it, and they're more common in clinical populations, 5 to 25%. And this has much overlap with social phobias. Now, differential diagnosis, pervasive distinguishes from social phobias. Unlike cluster A, they strongly desire the relationships. They just can't have it, right? They're more shy than antisocial. And behavioral anxiety reduction techniques would be some, I don't know why I have that personal brand on there, therapeutic things that we can do. Anti-anxiety medications as well as antidepressants are also helpful. So sorry about that. And then we have dependent personality disorder. So this is clingy, indecisiveness, submissive, very dependent, right? So this is a pervasive or excessive needs to be taken care of that leads to submissive and clinging behaviors, fear of separation beginning from early adulthood and present by 5 or more of the following. They have difficulty making everyday decisions without excessive amount or reassurance from others. They need others to assume responsibility for most of major areas in their life, have difficulty expressing disagreement with others because of fear or loss of support or approval. They have difficulty initiating projects or doing things by themselves because of lack of self-confidence. They go to excessive lengths to obtain nurturance and support from others to the point of volunteering to do things that are unpleasant. They feel uncomfortable or helpless when they're alone because exaggerated fears of being unable to take care of themselves. And they urgently seek help from others as a source of care when their relationship ends, and they're unrealistically preoccupied with fears of being left and having to take care of themselves. Dependent behavior may develop in people with deliberating medical or psychiatric conditions. Dependent personality traits must be present by late childhood or early adolescence. 2 to 4% of the population and 5 to 30% of patient population. They are very vulnerable to depression. Parents may be clinging and interfere with normal separation. Insecure attachment and helplessness is a result. And our primary concern is avoidance of dependent on overdependence on treatment provider. And supportive group therapy is one of the ways we can do it. So we basically have to work on their autonomy and have them learn how to be more autonomous and make decisions for themselves and be okay with the decisions that they make. Oh, yay, my fave. This is obsessive compulsive personality disorder, not to be confused with obsessive compulsive disorder. So obsessive compulsive disorder is a mental disorder marked by recurrent, intrusive, and unwanted thoughts of this behavior. So say, for example, somebody with OCD would not be able to leave their house before they checked everything 30 times to make sure everything was turned off. Once they get into their car, they have to turn on the car and turn it off 6 times. They have to walk around their car 3 times before they do that. At every stoplight, they have to count. At every stop, they have to count to 20 3 times or they can't move forward. So these are not wanted thoughts. They feel like they have no control over them. These symptoms can fluctuate with anxiety, and they often have marked distress due to their symptoms. Whereas a person with obsessive compulsive personality disorder is somebody who always wants to be in control. They have strict orderliness and perfection, and they tend to be persistent over time, but they still have control over what they can and cannot do. So it's not as intrusive. This is a pervasive pattern with orderliness, perfectionist, and mental and interpersonal controls at the expense of flexibility, openness, and efficiency, beginning in early adulthood, and is indicated by 4 or more of the following. So I would say this is like Khloe Kardashian, because I don't know if you guys have seen her kitchen, but everything is extremely organized. And she says all the time on the show that she's an extremely rigid person and she just likes orderliness. She likes to have her routine and she doesn't like to move away from it. And I don't know everything else, but that's what helps me remember. So, like I said, come up with some way to help you remember. So, this is a person who is preoccupied with details, rules, list, orders, and organization, to the major point of the activity is lost. They show perfectionism that interferes with task completion. Um, and these are four or more of the following. So, it doesn't have to be every single thing on the list. They are excessively devoted to their work and productivity to the exclusion of leisure activities and friendships, overconscientiousness and inflexible about feelings of morality, ethics, or value, unable to discard worn out or worthless objects, is reluctant to delegate tasks to others because they're not doing it the way that they want it to be done, adopts to a misery spending style both to the self and others. Money is viewed as something to be hoarded for future catastrophes and shows rigidness and stubbornness. Now, this is heritable. It has been a variety of psychodynamic theories have proposed. It's distinct from OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. Yeah, they're 1 to 2% of the population, more common in males. Individual cognitive or psychodynamic therapy is recommended. Medications usually only impact comorbid psychiatric conditions. And they lack intrusive obsessions and compulsive rituals, which is what OCD is. And that's it. Again, all of this was from the DSM-5, as well as the website that's linked on those little pictures. And this has been Defining Personality Disorders with me, Leslie. Have a wonderful day, everybody.